We all have that one childhood show, the one that lingers in the back of our minds, haunting us in ways we didn't quite understand at the time. For many, that show was Courage the Cowardly Dog. With its eerie animation, unsettling villains, and elements of psychological horror, it left a lasting impact. But here's the thing. Despite how terrifying it was, Courage always had a resolution. The monsters were defeated, the scares were temporary, and by the end of the episode, you could turn off the TV and sleep soundly, knowing that Courage had saved the day. Yeah, Courage the Cowardly Dog was scary, but it had heart. It was horror with a safety net, fear with a silver lining. You always knew that no matter how bad things got, Courage would persevere and things would return to normal. But what if I told you there was another cartoon? One that didn't comfort you after the horror. One that didn't end with a sense of safety. A show that looked like it was meant for kids, but was actually one of the most brutal, unforgiving, and downright disturbing cartoons ever made. Meet Happy Tree Friends. At first glance, Happy Tree Friends seemed like your typical Saturday morning cartoon. It had everything you'd expect from a kid-friendly show. Adorable animal characters, bright and inviting animation, and a bouncy, happy-go-lucky theme song. It looked safe, harmless even. Something you could easily mistake for another lighthearted, silly cartoon aimed at children. Oh no, because Happy Tree Friends was anything but harmless. What set it apart, what made it legendary, was what happened after that deceptive opening sequence. Unlike Courage the Cowardly Dog, which thrived on suspense and psychological horror, Happy Tree Friends thrived on pure, unfiltered shock. There was no slow build-up to something terrifying, no eerie tension or creeping dread. Instead, it was a carefully laid trap, one designed to lull you into a false sense of security before violently yanking the rug out from under you in the most gruesome way possible. Every episode began innocently enough. Maybe Giggles was baking cookies. Maybe Lumpy was helping a friend build something. It all seemed normal. But then, without warning, everything would spiral into chaos. And when I say chaos, I mean the kind of nightmare fuel that no child should have ever been exposed to. Let's be clear, this wasn't just cartoon violence like you'd see in Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry. There were no harmless comedic anvils falling on heads, no characters bouncing back up from explosions as if nothing had happened. No, Happy Tree Friends was full-on horror movie levels of gore. Every single episode featured over-the-top, hyper-detailed, and downright grotesque deaths. We're talking decapitations, dismemberments, eye gouging, brain splattering, things that looked like they belonged in an R-rated slasher film, not in an animated show filled with bright colors and cute characters. And the worst part? There was never a happy ending. In most cartoons, violence, when it happened, was either played for laughs or had some kind of resolution. Characters would survive, learn a lesson, or at least exist in a world where actions had meaning. But Happy Tree Friends? There were no lessons learned, no redemption arcs, no one was ever saved. The show was merciless. Every episode ended in total carnage, with the entire cast brutally killed in increasingly horrifying ways. And then, the next episode would start like nothing had ever happened. A cruel, never-ending cycle of suffering and destruction. And then, there was Flippy. Unlike the other characters, whose deaths were purely a result of unfortunate accidents or slapstick-style mishaps taken to horrific extremes, Flippy's violence wasn't random. He was a war veteran suffering from PTSD, and his episodes of psychotic rage turned him into a full-blown serial killer. One second, he was smiling, friendly, and helpful. The next, he was brutally slaughtering everyone in sight, lost in a blood-soaked flashback to his days on the battlefield. The fact that his actions were rooted in something real, something so deeply traumatic, made his presence in the show even more disturbing. So, was Happy Tree Friends the most disturbing cartoon ever made? Well, let's put it this way. While shows like Courage the Cowardly Dog scared us as kids, they still had a comforting storybook feel. They were spooky, sure, but they never truly left you feeling hopeless. Happy Tree Friends, on the other hand, left scars. It was brutal, relentless, and unapologetic. It didn't just show violence, it reveled in it. And that's why when people say Courage the Cowardly Dog was the scariest cartoon of all time, I just have to laugh because compared to Happy Tree Friends, Courage was just a spooky bedtime story. What do you think? Did Happy Tree Friends traumatize you as a kid? Or do you think another cartoon takes the crown for the most disturbing animated series ever made? Let's talk about it. Share your thoughts in the comments below.